Aquamarina, a world draped in perpetual twilight beneath the swirling teal-colored oceans that dominated its surface. Here, the Aquamarinians, a species of highly evolved, sentient cephalopods, lived and breathed according to the strictures of the Tide Lord's mandates, a complex, millennia-old legal code governing every facet of their existence. Their society was a symphony of synchronized efficiency, a testament to their disciplined, militaristic culture. Their cities, shimmering constructs of bioluminescent coral and pressure-resistant alloys, pulsed with the rhythmic hum of advanced technology. Submersible vehicles, shaped like streamlined nautili, zipped through underwater thoroughfares. Towering, kelp forests served as both natural resources and strategic defense points, patrolled by elite squads of Aquamarinian soldiers, their tentacles adorned with energy weapons. Everything was in its place, accounted for, and served a predetermined purpose, all for the glory of the Tide Lord and the expansion of their underwater empire. Then Jaxx arrived. He materialized quite unceremoniously inside the grand hall of aqueous welcome, the Aquamarinians' equivalent of an interstellar customs office. One moment, the shimmering portal was dormant. The next, it spat out a being that looked profoundly out of place. Jaxx, a human male of indeterminate age, dressed in what appeared to be a slightly rumpled jumpsuit and sporting a perpetually unimpressed expression. He blinked, adjusted his collar, and surveyed his surroundings, with a distinct lack of enthusiasm. "Huh," he mumbled, scratching his head. "Guess I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque." The Aquamarinians present, a welcoming committee composed of high-ranking military officials and cultural attachés, exchanged bewildered glances. Their multifaceted eyes, usually gleaming with cold calculation, now flickered with something akin to confusion. Protocol clearly hadn't accounted for this. General Krill, a particularly imposing Aquamarinian with extra-long tentacles and an array of gleaming metals, stepped forward. "Greetings, being. You have arrived on Aquamarina. State your purpose and affiliation in accordance with Mandate 37, subsection C." His voice, translated through a sophisticated vocal modulator, resonated with authority. Jaxx yawned. "Purpose? Vacation? And affiliation? I'm with myself, mostly." He grinned, a flash of teeth in the dim aquatic light. "You can call me Jaxx." The Aquamarinians remained silent for a long, uncomfortable moment. Vacation? Such a concept was alien to their highly structured existence. Their entire lives were dedicated to the defense and expansion of their underwater kingdom. Leisure was viewed as a dangerous distraction, a weakness to be exploited by their enemies. "Vacation is not permitted on Aquamarina," General Krill stated flatly. "All individuals must serve a function. You will be processed and assigned a role appropriate to your skill set." Jaxx raised an eyebrow. "Skill set, huh? Well, I'm pretty good at making microwave burritos, and I can beat anyone at underwater chess, though I've never actually played it underwater." The cultural attaché, a slender Aquamarinian named Coralia, attempted to salvage the situation. "Perhaps the being possesses technological expertise, engineering skills, knowledge of warfare," she offered hopefully. Jaxx shrugged. "I can fix a leaky faucet. Does that count?" Coralia sighed, a stream of bubbles escaping her gills. This was going to be a long visit. The cultural gulf between humanity and Aquamarina was already proving to be wider and deeper than the ocean itself. And this was just the beginning. Jaxx's arrival threw a wrench into the Aquamarinians' perfectly calibrated society. After a series of increasingly baffling interviews and aptitude tests, the Tide Lord himself decreed that Jaxx would be assigned to the study of their most powerful weapon, the Tidal Disruptor. A device rumored to control the very tides and the cornerstone of their military might. General Krill personally escorted Jaxx to the Tidal Disruptor's chamber, a vast, echoing cavern deep within the heart of their capital city. The air thrummed with energy, the walls lined with glowing conduits and pulsating machinery. Aquamarinian technicians, their tentacles flailing with purpose, monitored the device's intricate workings. "Behold," Krill announced, his voice booming, with pride. "The Tidal Disruptor. With this weapon we can summon tsunamis of unimaginable force, crush our enemies beneath the weight of the ocean itself." He gestured dramatically towards the massive structure at the center of the chamber. A complex lattice of metal and crystal, humming with barely contained power. Jaxx, however, seemed remarkably unimpressed. He ambled towards the disruptor, hands in his pockets, a picture of casual indifference. "So it's like a big wave machine, huh?" he said, squinting at the machinery. "Cool." The Aquamarinians exchanged horrified glances. Cool? Was that all he had to say? This was their ultimate weapon, the embodiment of their technological prowess, and this human was treating it like a novelty toy. Krill cleared his throat, attempting to regain control of the situation. "This is no mere wave machine, human. This is a symbol of Aquamarina's dominance, a testament to our unwavering commitment to strategic superiority." Jaxx circled the disruptor, peering at its various components with a detached curiosity. He tapped a glowing crystal with his finger. "What's this do?" A nearby technician, a nervous young Aquamarinian named Fizz, stammered. "That is the hydroharmonic resonator. It amplifies the tidal frequencies, allowing us to make bigger waves," Jaxx finished for him, with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Got it." The technicians recoiled as if struck. Such blatant disrespect for the disruptor was practically blasphemy. Krill's tentacles tightened with barely suppressed anger. This human was testing his patience. "You do not seem to grasp the gravity of the situation, human," Krill said, his voice dangerously low. "This weapon is not a plaything. It is the key to our continued survival." Jaxx shrugged. "Relax, Krill. I get it. Big weapon, important stuff, but, mind if I take a look inside?" He pointed to a panel on the side of the disruptor secured by a series of intricate locks. "Just curious how it all works." Krill hesitated. Allowing an outsider, especially one as flippant as Jaxx, to tamper with the Tidal Disruptor was a clear violation of protocol. But the Tide Lord's orders were absolute. Jaxx was to study the weapon, and that meant granting him access. "Very well," Krill conceded reluctantly, "but you will be under constant supervision, and you will not, under any circumstances, attempt to alter its function." Jaxx grinned. "No promises." He set to work on the panel, pulling out a multi-tool from his jumpsuit pocket. The Aquamarinians watched with a mixture of fascination and dread as he began disassembling the disruptor, piece by piece. Their weapon of mass destruction, now in the hands of a seemingly clueless human. What could possibly go wrong? Days turned into weeks, and Jaxx remained fixated on the Tidal Disruptor. He spent hours tinkering with the machinery, muttering to himself in a language the Aquamarinians couldn't understand, occasionally emitting a strange, high-pitched whistling sound. Krill and his team of technicians watched with mounting anxiety as Jaxx's modifications grew increasingly bizarre. He started by replacing vital components with seemingly random objects. The hydroharmonic resonator was swapped for a collection of colored glass spheres he claimed were more aesthetically pleasing. He rerouted the energy conduits, connecting them to a series of spinning wheels and flashing lights that served no discernible purpose. He even added a small battery-operated fan, which he insisted would improve airflow. The Aquamarinians were baffled. These changes were not only illogical but actively detrimental to the disruptor's functionality. Fizz, the nervous technician, voiced the collective concern. But sir," he stammered to Krill, "he's dismantling the weapon. He's replacing crucial components with trinkets." Krill, his tentacles twitching uncontrollably, could only offer a frustrated response. "I know that, Fizz. Do you think I'm not aware of the chaos he's creating? But we can't interfere. The Tide Lord's orders were clear. We are to observe, to document, and to tolerate this madness." The other technicians whispered amongst themselves, their anxieties escalating with each passing day. Some speculated that Jaxx was a spy, sent by a rival aquatic species to sabotage their defenses. Others believed he was simply insane, a rogue element whose actions defied all reason. As Jaxx continued his work, the Tidal Disruptor began to resemble less a weapon of mass destruction and more a bizarre art installation. Wires hung haphazardly, lights flashed erratically, and strange noises emanated from within its core. The once imposing structure had become a laughingstock, a symbol of Aquamarina's utter bewilderment. The tension in the chamber was palpable. Every Aquamarinian present felt the weight of their cultural and military heritage being mocked by this strange, unpredictable human. They knew something was about to happen, something that would irrevocably alter their understanding of the universe. But what that something was, they could not possibly imagine. The moment of truth arrived with a surge of anticipation and more than a little dread. Tide Lord Vorlag himself had come to witness the unveiling of Jaxx's improvements. He stood flanked by his honor guard, his usually stoic face etched with a rare mix of curiosity and apprehension. The entire control room was filled with high-ranking officials, their eyes fixed on the Tidal Disruptor. Jaxx, oblivious to the weight of the moment, grinned broadly. "All right, folks," he announced, clapping his hands together. "Showtime." He pressed a large, brightly colored button he'd installed, which was labeled, in hastily scrawled letters, "Do not push, unless you want fun." A low hum filled the chamber as the disruptor sputtered to life. Lights flickered, gears whirred, and the small battery-operated fans spun furiously. The Aquamarinians braced themselves, expecting the ground to shake, the oceans to rise, and the very fabric of reality to be torn asunder. Instead, bubbles, millions upon millions of iridescent bubbles erupted from the disruptor, filling the chamber with a shimmering, weightless cloud. The air shimmered with soapy rainbows, reflecting the dumbfounded faces of the Aquamarinians. The scent of artificial strawberry filled their gills. The Tidal Disruptor, the pride of Aquamarina's military might, was now a giant bubble machine. Jaxx threw his head back and laughed. "Ta-da!" he exclaimed, spreading his arms wide. "Behold, the Bubblinator 5000, guaranteed to relieve stress, promote relaxation, and annoy your enemies to death." Tide Lord Vorlag stood speechless, his mandibles agape. Krill fainted. Fizz simply stared, his eyes wide with disbelief. The honor guard, trained for millennia to face down the most terrifying of foes, didn't know how to react to the sheer absurdity of the situation. Slowly, tentatively, an Aquamarinian guard reached out a claw and popped a bubble. A look of faint surprise crossed his face. Then another guard popped a bubble and another, until the entire room was filled with the soft popping sounds and the giggling of bewildered aquatic warriors. The war machine had been transformed into a source of amusement, the terror weapon into a toy. The Aquamarinians, a species known for their militaristic discipline, were playing. Jaxx watched the scene unfold with a satisfied smile. "See?" he said, nudging the still unconscious Krill with his foot. "Didn't I tell you I could improve it?" The great bubble bath of Aquamarina had begun, and its effects were far more profound than anyone, even Jaxx, could have predicted. Initially, the Aquamarinians were confused, their rigid protocols unable to process the sheer silliness of the situation. But as the bubbles floated and popped, a subtle shift began. Children, or rather, the Aquamarinian equivalent of them, small tadpole-like creatures destined for military service, were the first to succumb. They wriggled free from their instructors, chasing the shimmering orbs with unrestrained glee. Soon, adult Aquamarinians, initially horrified, found themselves drawn into the spectacle. A faint smile touched the lips of a battle-hardened general as a bubble landed on his helmet. A stern admiral chuckled as his meticulously arranged medals were momentarily obscured by a floating sphere. The rigid societal structure of Aquamarina, built upon millennia of unwavering discipline, was beginning to loosen. The concept of fun was alien to them. Their lives were dictated by duty, honor, and the unwavering pursuit of military excellence. Laughter was reserved for tactical victories, Joy was a foreign concept. The bubbles, however, were bypassing all logic, appealing to something primal and buried deep within their aquatic souls. The absurdity of the situation was not lost on Jaxx, who watched the unfolding chaos with detached amusement. "Huh," he muttered, scratching his chin. "Guess everyone likes bubbles, even grumpy fish people." He leaned back against the control panel, munching on a nutrient bar, as the cultural revolution of Aquamarina commenced. The contrast between human and Aquamarinian values became starkly apparent. For humans, entertainment, leisure, and a healthy dose of absurdity were essential components of a fulfilling life. For the Aquamarinians, these were frivolous distractions from their martial purpose. The bubble bath was forcing them to confront this fundamental difference. The tidal pools, once used for strategic war games, were now filled with giggling Aquamarinians batting bubbles back and forth. The training grounds echoed not with the clang of weapons, but with the delighted squeals of tadpoles chasing soapy spheres. The military parades were briefly interrupted by rogue bubbles, causing momentary lapses in formation and suppressed smiles. Satire became the order of the day. Aquamarinian artists, inspired by the bizarre turn of events, began incorporating bubble motifs into their traditionally austere artwork. Comedians, once banished for their subversive humor, found themselves in high demand, their jokes now centered on the absurdity of a warfaring race captivated by bubbles. Even Tide Lord Vorlag, the embodiment of Aquamarinian stoicism, was not immune. He was spotted on more than one occasion, surreptitiously popping bubbles with a claw, a faint glimmer of amusement in his normally stern eyes. It was a cultural earthquake, a seismic shift triggered by the most unlikely of catalysts. The Aquamarinians were learning to laugh, to play, to embrace the unexpected. They were discovering the simple joy of a bubble, and in doing so they were questioning everything they thought they knew about themselves and their place in the universe. The madness had begun, and Aquamarina would never be the same. As the bubble-induced euphoria began to settle, Tide Lord Vorlag, still slightly damp, approached Jaxx with a regiment of his most trusted guards. The Aquamarinians, despite their newfound appreciation for bubbles, were still a species governed by order, and they demanded an explanation. "Human Jaxx," Vorlag boomed, his voice echoing slightly due to the residual bubbles clinging to the chamber walls. "You have altered the Tidal Disruptor. Explain yourself." Jaxx, who had been idly trying to fashion a bubble pipe out of scrap tubing, looked up with a shrug. "Well, you see, I was bored." He paused as if that should be self-explanatory. "And it seemed like a good idea at the time." A ripple of confusion passed through the Aquamarinian ranks. "Bored?" Vorlag repeated, his brow ridges furrowing. "You deliberately sabotaged a weapon of immense power because you were bored?" "Sabotaged is a strong word," Jaxx countered, still fiddling with the tubing. "I prefer creatively repurposed. Besides, you guys seemed a little stressed." "Everyone needs a good bubble bath now and then, right?" He finally managed to blow a small, wobbly bubble from his makeshift pipe. "See? Therapeutic." Vorlag stared at the bubble, then back at Jaxx. His face, normally a mask of military stoicism, was now a tableau of utter bewilderment. "Therapeutic bubbles?" He clearly struggled to process the concept. This is the logic of humans?" Jaxx just grinned. "Pretty much. We're complicated creatures, we are. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is with a little bit of harmless, soapy fun." He gestured grandly at the bubble-filled chamber. "Exhibit A." The Aquamarinians exchanged uneasy glances. They had faced down intergalactic warlords, navigated treacherous asteroid fields, and mastered the art of underwater warfare. But the bizarre, almost nonsensical logic of this human was proving to be their most formidable challenge yet. Vorlag, after a long, contemplative silence, simply sighed. "Guards, escort the human back to his quarters, and someone get me a towel. This situation requires further analysis." As Jaxx was led away, still cheerfully blowing bubbles, he couldn't help but chuckle. "They'll figure it out eventually," he muttered to himself. "Or maybe not. Either way, it'll be fun to watch." And so, The episode concluded with the Aquamarinians grappling with the utterly alien concept of human boredom and the baffling notion that a weapon of mass destruction could be transformed into a source of innocent amusement. The universe, it seemed, had a strange sense of humor, and Jaxx, the unambitious human, was its unwitting agent of chaos. And so Aquamarina was never quite the same. The Tidal Disruptor remained a bubble machine, a monument to the day that logic took a holiday and absurdity reigned supreme. The Aquamarinians, once paragons of rigid order, found themselves, well, enjoying the occasional bubble bath. The societal shifts were subtle at first. A relaxation of dress codes, a slight increase in recreational time, and an almost imperceptible lessening of the ever-present tension that had defined Aquamarinian life for centuries. They even started experimenting with different bubble solutions: seaweed extract for a kelp-scented bath, bioluminescent plankton for an ethereal glow. Jaxx, of course, was oblivious to the grand scale of his influence. He'd already moved on to pondering the structural integrity of jellyfishes. He did, however, leave behind a single instruction manual titled, "How to Turn Your Planet's Biggest Problem into a Hilarious Solution." Probably. But the ripples of Jaxx's actions didn't stop at Aquamarina's shores. Whispers of the bubble revolution reached other corners of the galaxy. Tales of a civilization transformed by a human's whimsical tinkering sparked curiosity and a touch of envy among more than a few oppressed species. And somewhere, on a dusty, forgotten space station, Jaxx was already eyeing a particularly menacing-looking doomsday device. He mused, a glint in his eye. I wonder if this thing can make cotton candy? The universe, it seemed, was about to get a whole lot stickier.